This is a well-known one. Insanity in individuals is something rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. Now, I think there's speculation. I think his name was Lao Tzu. I think he said something like that, or some other politician maybe ripped off of Nietzsche and didn't quote him. But I think that I think this is the original Nietzsche quote. Insanity in individuals is something rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. And when I hear that, I'm like, okay, what the hell does that mean? Insanity in individuals is something rare. Psychopaths, Machiavellians, and sociopaths, narcissists, the dark triad, they occupy about 3% of the population. So that's also a psychological fact that he's saying. It's not just a speculation. He's rooted. I don't know if he knew that or not, but it's rooted in fact. 3% of the world is psychopathic. So insanity in individuals on a statistical level is actually something rare. Thank God. But then he says in groups, in epochs, parties, political parties, it's the rule to be insane. You can think, okay, well, how does that work? One of my dreams is to do something that I'm really interested in. It's a hypothesis. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think I don't know if there's a way to calculate. There's a certain test to calculate the intelligence quotient of someone, the IQ test. I want to know if it's possible to test a group's IQ, because I really believe that the collective IQ of someone, of the individual, significantly plummets once they are placed inside of a group. And I want to conduct an experiment that proves this. I mean, not proves it, but once that tests this hypothesis. Because I really do think that people's intelligence, their ability to acquire facts, and their wisdom significantly drops once they are placed in a group. And I've always seen this, particularly in school, and more particularly with young males. Because when you put young boys in a group, they just, if you even in school, if you have family, they just go absolutely nuts. They just lose their minds. What's his name? I'm gonna forget it. Douglas Murray. He wrote a book called Madness in Crowds. And I think in there he talked about the that urge, or that demonic urge to want to cause mayhem once you're automatically placed inside of a group. Because once you're placed inside of a group, you kind of become generic. Like you're not really you anymore. You're kind of like an avatar of this group, especially if that group has a coherent doctrine, an ideology, something that robs the individual from his consciousness, reality, and his truth itself. So they just become like this faceless avatar of an ideologue. They just become something inhuman, and then therefore they just spew and regurgitate what they were indoctrinated to say and what they were indoctrinated to believe. Just become an NPC. Why does that happen when you get placed inside of a group? It's because the level of judgment can be dispersed. The bigger the group, the less and the more difficult it becomes to point out the cancer when you are in a group. The group facilitates ambiguity. The group facilitates pathology, if you almost think about it. Even on a medical level. You want to get that cancer out before the cells multiply and multiply and multiply, then before we have to chop off your entire leg. Like once the parasite, the ideology is dropped into this group, and not just affect that one person, it instantaneously affects how those two people interact with each other. And how those two people interact with each other is how affects how these other people react to each other. And then you have a group. Then what happens when you have a fragmented group of people who don't know how to be individuals and to associate with each other in a social way without a doctrine, without an ideology? What happens? They become fragmented in that lack of individuality, that lack of sovereignty, in the most perverse, in the most ironic way, is what draws them together, because they're looking for that answer. They're looking for that truth. This is especially with gangs. They're looking for that certainty. They're looking for something. Where are we? We're lost. We just lost the First World War. Our whole entire country is in ruins. We just signed the Treaty of Versailles. We can't. Our military is pretty much pointless now. We're lost. We don't know what to do. Paul Tillich wrote a really good book called one of the best books I read. I made a video about that. The Courage to Be. And what Paul Tillich thought of collectivist ideologies was that there is a certain courage in a collectivist ideology. The courage is the courage to be as part. I have the courage to look at myself, fragmented self, and to stick myself to whatever this movement is. That courage to it's a sacrifice to self and to mold myself to something higher. That's how the Nazi movement started. How else did something like that start? And thank God Tillich was actually against the movement. Unlike Martin Heidegger, he was fully engulfed in it. It's kind of funny. We're going to do a series later on how those two, how their two works interacted. It came to completely opposite manners. That courage to be as part, that fragmented group. They're looking for something. They need something. If you look, that's the complete opposite of the Judeo-Christian story. You know, Christ says to carry your cross and to bear the suffering. I don't need anyone. I don't need a party. I don't need a group. I don't need a lead. I don't need a king. I don't need a pharaoh. I don't need some party, some bureaucracy to tell me what I can and can't do. I'm going to carry my cross. I'm going to take on the burden, that which is existence itself. That's an interesting quote.